I have you now.
They want to mess with my droid. They're going to pay for it.
This is the way.
You may fire when ready.
Blow that piece of junk out of the sky!
The way you're fighting, you wouldn't have lasted long.
Hello there.
Kenobi!
The ability to speak does not make you intelligent.
We're halfway through The Mandalorian, where we are on Chapter 20, The Foundling, directed by Carl Weathers, written by Jon Favreau and Dave Filoni. It was a really exciting and action-packed episode the whole time. For people who thought that last episode was a little slower, a little less action, it was kind of an action sandwich. Well, that is not the case in this episode because it's basically non-stop action. Lots of visual exposition, a little bit of dialogue exposition. Really exciting stuff. And it was only 30 minutes. And, you know, maybe we're lucky it was only 30 minutes because we have a great show for you today. And we have a lot to talk about this episode and a lot to talk about outside this episode. Star Wars news has been chugging along. We're going to have a massive HoloNet news segment because the Jedi Survivor trailer just dropped a couple days ago. And we have some movie news in Star Wars that sadly we've got to cover. You'll hear more about that in a little while. But it was a great episode of The Mandalorian. Super cool to get to see the covert and how it's grown. But let's hear Colin's opening takes on this. So without further ado, it is the Foundling Menace, Colin Archer.
Man, I'm so excited. Every week it just ramps up for me. I'm a big lore hound. I need to know more. And this one's a really good one. We got a lot to talk about here. And these rapid reactions are something else. There's something that occurred to this that struck me to the core and really hit me emotionally. Listen to it right now.
He doesn't seem to take a hint, this guy.
The shortest episode of The Mandalorian yet definitely delivered. Colin, this was a little bit of a, it was short. It was a short episode. And we got a lot of new information. But we didn't see like a larger galactic conflict. But we spent a lot of time on a planet we were just on. So what'd you think? What were your rapid reactions to that?
I don't care about any of that. I'm very emotional right now about Killer, man. Ahmed Best being in there.
I know. That's amazing.
Chills. I don't know why. It's such a big deal.
It is. It's huge. I mean, it's so Ahmed Best, like we saw, was in this episode, for those who haven't seen, and Ahmed Best is the actor who played Jar Jar Binks in all three of the prequel trilogy movies. You know, his role was not well received when the prequels came out. He got death threats. He has talked about how he really struggled with his mental health because of how terribly his role was received. And so for them to revive him as an actor in Star Wars and give him such a heroic role in Order 66, and we don't know the rest of Grogu's story, but we know it's going to be big. And so for that large of a role in the Star Wars galaxy is awesome for Ahmed Best.
Another thing, this rapid reaction is going to take a minute, I'm sorry, but every time a new Jedi is created and one that is such a pivotal role in such a thing like The Mandalorian and Grogu's story, like you just said, we're fixing to get a whole bunch of media about Kelleran, and there's going to be a comic book. There's going to be a literary book. There's going to be
he's getting a Black Series action figure for sure. For sure.
Huh.
An Ahmed Best likeness action figure is going to be awesome. It's going to be cool. And just for those who don't know, Kelleran Beck is actually a 2-3-year-old creation at this point because Kelleran Beck was created for the Jedi Temple Challenge, which was a game show they ran on StarWars.com in 2020 with 10 episodes. And so he was the host of that, and he played Kelleran in that. But, no one had any assumption to think that show was canon or anything like that. But apparently it was, because Kelleran Beck is alive and well in the Star Wars universe. Yes, so it was exciting to get to see Ahmed Best back. I mean, the elevator opens, and that's what you see. I mean, that's who you recognize, and it's really, really cool.
Yep. So regardless of the other things, this episode was so action-packed, so intense.
Oh, it was an action from start to finish episode, certainly.
And it was so fun. We find out so many cool things about Mandalore, Grogu. Right up until this point, he's been tag along with Din Djarin. Now he's part of the clan. He's part of the crew, doing all the training that they do. Very unsure of himself, but getting into the thick of it at the same time.
Well, in that opening scene, it's really interesting to just see that we have so many new Mandalorians. I mean, their recruitment drive must have been massive because there are so many people here. And there's a lot of new foundlings. There's many children in those shots. And we get to learn that Ragnar is Paz's kid, as many people speculated from the first episode.
Right, and then the obvious telegraph of these flying monsters going to be mounts for some Mandalorians. It's really cool.
Right. It is really cool. It is really, really cool. And Bo-Katan, we need to talk about her for a second. She is not like I heard a lot of theories that she's going to backstab the Children of the Watch. I might have even said that. And that she is not who she says she is in this situation. She is a reluctant joiner. She is absolutely not a reluctant joiner. She is a part of the covert now. She is, Paz respects her, as we can tell. She has become a leader already in their group. And she mentions the Mythosaur, and, everyone thought, oh, she's not mentioning Mythosaur because she doesn't know how to grapple with this information, or, oh, because she wants to hide it from the Children of the Watch. Those were my two theories, and what it was she didn't think people were going to believe her, and they don't. Right. Even the radicals don't believe her.
Yeah, so there's going to be some sort of circle back to that. That's a major deal, right? I mean, we knew that, but this just lays the groundwork for this being even a bigger deal. Because everyone's like, yeah, right. Another thing that's a huge deal is we have some, like, you can take off your helmet in private. I think we always assume that, because, like, how do you take a shower? How do you take a bath? How do you be with a partner, right?
Yeah, how do you make Ragnar?
Yeah. So, I mean, obviously there's some, like, you have to bathe, you have to shave, you have to get a haircut. Yeah, I mean, you obviously do those things yourself. But you go eat, and that was so cool to see. I mean, we having this part where you get to take your helmet off in private is, I think, kind of a relief. If you're faced with, I have to shove little chunks of food up in this food hole, that's not going to work.
Right.
I have to shove a razor and clip through this. I don't know.
You're right.
I never get to see my partner's face. Right? It's not going to work.
Yep. No, it's not. It's not. And then the last thing I'll say on this rapid reactions is we saw Grogu in action. We saw him in Mandalorian action. We saw him using Mandalorian weapons, fighting Ragnar. That was great. That was great to finally see Grogu move on and begin his training. And so this show, The Foundling, again, just like The Convert, just like all these other shows, the title of this show has like a triple meaning in this one.
Right.
And so that was really, really good.
Excellent. I can't wait to let's talk more.
Yeah, we're gonna get into our breakdown right now. Those were our rapid reactions. We got to gush about Amon Best's reappearance, and we're gonna get into more of that in a second. And there was like we did in our rapid reactions, we couldn't even cram it into the 5 minutes. It was a 6-minute long rapid reaction because of how much there was to talk about in this episode. And again, a lot of it was visual exposition. And so, Colin, I thought that there were a lot of really cool establishing shots. There's one I can't wait to talk about. And there was just a lot of really good classic Mando action. This was firmly an episode of The Mandalorian. People said the last episode was like Andor. Not the case here. We're back into Mandalorian mode.
Yeah, every week, even in the last episode, we're diving deeper and deeper into these really cool things, finding out about the lore and the essence of the Children of the Watch and Mandalore as a whole, where these characters come from, what their motivations are, all these other things. And then the cream of the crop on this thing is Grogu is coming into his own. Oh my goodness.
It's so exciting.
It's so exciting. It's so fun. The future is so bright.
I know,
man.
I know. If you liked Yoda in Attack of the Clones, I think you're going to like Grogu, maybe in just a few episodes, at least next season. And you're going to like him in this season because we're already seeing kind of glimpses of that. Like we said, super action-packed. Again, start to finish action. And that's why the episode was so short. It's 30 minutes long. And so it's not that we don't get a lot of meat out of this episode. We get a lot of new information. We get a lot. If you treat The Mandalorian like a soup, They've been adding ingredients to this soup for the last 3 episodes. They've been throwing in some onions, throwing in the broth, throwing in the meat. This time, throwing in the vegetables. This time, they threw in the meat. And we got to taste it finally because we got all of this delicious action. And that's why it was only 30 minutes.
Yeah, it doesn't advance the overall macro plot much. But all of these little things this is the character building episode for everybody.
Other than Den, it moves forward 5 characters in this. And we can count on our fingers how 5 characters show growth in this episode. Other than Den, it's okay for him to take the sideline.
I say even him just so slightly. But
okay, yeah, sure.
We'll get
right into it. And so the last thing I want to do before we hop into the episode is talking about the length, because I've heard people complain about it before it came out. And you have to think that a lot of people say the animated shows are only 30 minutes because they're kids shows. And that's partially true. But the other reason they're only 30-minute shows is they're telling a different kind of story. Last week, The Mandalorian and Andor and what will potentially be The Acolyte are telling long-form, adult, and not that The Mandalorian is an adult, but adult long-form television stories about long stories, big plot lines, lots of weaving plot.
It's an 8-hour movie.
Exactly. The Mandalorian is somewhere in between that, but this episode is so short because it's so action-packed, and I would say that's why animated shows are so short. Not just because they're for kids, but because they are, every episode of Rebels, every episode of the Clone Wars, every episode of Bad Batch has solid, long action sequences because that's what you're there for. You're there for explosions and blasters and things like that.
Yeah, and the kid shows have lessons that are real simple.
Right.
So you don't want to overburden a child with something complex, right?
Mm-hmm. That's why you got the clips at the beginning of the Clone Wars every episode that gives you the overarching lesson of the episode.
Right.
But that's not the way with the Mandalorian. They are effectively able to deliver a ton of plot and development, a lot of times visually, in this 30-minute chunk, and it's really impressive. And so the very first scene of this delivers a giant plot chunk to us in that we saw the Mandalorian covert had grown during Ragnar's initiation ceremony or his baptism or whatever the term for that is at the beginning of the first episode of the season.
Right.
And so we saw that from Ragnar in that episode. Now, and there were 25 Mandalorians there.
That, yeah.
There's at least 100 Mandalorians.
At least 100
on screen. I mean, they are at a training camp. They're there training, and they're doing every Mandalorian thing you could imagine.
This is your typical Tuesday afternoon.
Yes.
If you're a Mandalorian.
Yes.
I mean, you're either on a quest or on a mission, or you're training. This reminds me of like an infantry squad in the military. Mm-hmm. That's all they do is live to train, train to live.
Right.
Is one of the little mottos or something like that. And the warrior culture, what else are you going to do? I mean, they probably have their people who go gather food. They have their people who go gather resources. But if you're not doing one of those things, if you're not on shift, if you're not on watch, you're training.
Right.
Because you have to be the best warrior you can be from when you're a child.
And they're exhibiting all of the Mandalorian gadgets. Flamethrowers, knives, blasters.
Lariats.
They're using their jetpacks, the lariats. They've got it
darts.
all. They're darts, exactly. They're doing all of it. And so, this is a good little Mando summer camp that they're at. I mean, to get all of these converts to do this giant recruitment drive, they had to have been giving away a lot of really cool free t-shirts.
Yeah.
Because there's way more Mandalorians. In the Book of Boba Fett, we hear Paz say, it's down to them 3, Paz, the Armorer, and Mando. And that's it. And so when we take a look at this group, this is another indication when people kind of lost their minds about Jon Favreau talking about the passage of time. This is how they're showing us the passage of time. You don't get 100 Mandalorians just walk out of this cave.
Right. These are recovered Mandalorians from out in those, say, Din Djarin. I mean, that news had to have broke across the galaxy. There's people who like him. And Din Djarin, and then they're fanatics for the Darksaber.
Right.
And then there's people who like Bo-Katan. Mm-hmm.
And her Mandalorian band is still pirating across the galaxy, apparently.
Yeah, or some of them are here. I mean, we don't know, but we can make some solid assumptions, I think.
Right.
And I mean, and just the powerhouse, for all we know, they're saying Mandalore's not poisoned. Mm-hmm. And that's bringing some people. And then all the foundlings.
Right.
The recruitment drive has to be off the charts.
Right. And the Mandalorian famously is not a species-based group. They're a creedal group, and so they could be recruiting new people. They could hear about Din Djarin's escapades. They could hear that, like you said, Mandalore is unpoisoned, and not old Mandalorians, but new people who want to join could be showing up on the doorstep.
I mean, this scene was kind of blurry. For all we know, there's a Gungan Mandalorian back there just
right.
shooting his lariat.
Rhodian Mandalorians, all kinds of stuff under those helmets. I mean, that's part of the helmet. That's your face, so there's no need to even care what's under the mask for the Mandalorians.
Right.
So we talk about this training, and then there's a super important training sequence right after this. And Grogu is finally getting to train as a Mandalorian.
Yeah, and he's reluctant. You can kind of tell here.
He's nervous.
He's extremely nervous.
Well, the last time he got trained by a group of people, it didn't turn out very well.
That's right. and the really important dialogue here from the as of yet of this episode unnamed character. We don't want to get into that yet. But he says, "Why doesn't he wear the helmet?"
He was credited in the first episode as Ragnar.
He
doesn't. They don't say it verbally, but we know his name is
good.
Ragnar.
Okay, good. So this is what something. Why doesn't he wear a helmet? Or the better question, I guess, would be, is Grogu going to wear a helmet? I will affirmatively say yes. He will.
I agree.
Right, and obviously the ears are going to poke out.
Yeah,
right.
They have to.
And so, but the response by Din Djarin is, he's not old enough to speak the creed, and right. So there's a big, old, huge chunk of lore question answered there.
Yep.
And I'm sure there's more to it than that, because Ragnar, we saw him at the first of this taking his helmet, and obviously he could speak long before that. But there has to be like a black belt test to be a Mandalorian,
sure.
right?
For humanoids, the test is not just that you can speak. It's probably a certain age, or they have like a litmus. But for a species that they have no idea about, we don't even know, or they don't know how Grogu's going to grow. They don't know if he's going to stay the same size.
And as we find out immediately after these words, Grogu is highly skilled.
Yes,
and so this is the small growth part I want to say for Din Djarin is, we've been seeing him mentor Grogu, but this, like, he's not an apostate anymore. He's welcomed back into the fold. He's got his son there with him.
Right, and he's so proud.
And so being able to display this stuff to his friends, to his family, has to be, you can tell through all this behind the mask acting that he is beaming with joy.
Yes.
And so I think it's moving the needle just a millimeter or something, right?
Right.
But speaking as a father and seeing my children execute stuff that I've taught them, this is the reason for my existence. Mm-hmm. That was encapsulated on screen.
No, I'm sure it was amazing as a father to get to see that, because Din is like, so far in Star Wars, he's the perfect father. I mean, Star Wars is about these bad parent-father relationships. I mean, we got Kanan and Ezra, a wholly positive one, but even at the beginning of their relationship, it's really strained. We at least see Din, after the first 1 or 2 episodes of the entire series, really just start to adopt Grogu as his child. And it's awesome that in season 3...
before he was a mission, right?
Exactly. And it's awesome to see in season 3 for him to just really make it completely his own. And Bo-Katan is even being motherly to Grogu. She gets down there, helps him affix the darts onto his little arm, and says, he just wants you to do this because he's proud of you.
Yeah, my dad did this to me too. Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
So cool.
I think, look, I will say right now, we didn't talk about it the last 2 episodes because this tension was there, and it's still this tension there, and it's not explicit. I am 100% on team Bo-Katan and Din Djarin relationship. I want them together. Star Wars has lacked romance since Solo came out, or the romance in The Rise of Skywalker was so bare bones that romance is an integral part of Star Wars. It's why Anakin fell to the dark
fiction,
side. And it's Empire Strikes Back is essentially a romance movie, and so when you see these things, you have to say Star Wars has lacked romance for years at this point. I would say since Solo.
Yeah, well, I mean, you could read between the lines, like Boba Fett and Fennec Shand. I'm sure they weren't friends.
I don't agree with that one. I think they're
I'm just
friends.
Guessing. But still, I mean, so yeah, I agree with you 100%.
I'm totally on that team, and I still see it trending in that direction. And there are haters out there who don't want that. If you're a hater of that, get a hold of us. Get on the Discord, comment on some of ours. I want to talk to you about it, because I'd love to hear your arguments on why it's a bad idea. But I can only see positives out of it. And Star Wars has been in a romance drought for too long. So right before this fight starts, Ragnar is, and I'm just going to say this because if you listen to this, you watch the episode. We're going to get wade deeper into this here in a little while. But Ragnar is the son of Paz Vizsla. We learn that later in the episode. And he is clearly a Vizsla. You know how I know that? Because he's a freaking brat.
Yeah.
In this
Well,
scene.
he's the boss's kid.
Yeah, exactly.
And it takes one to know one, right?
Yeah.
I'm the boss's kid.
He's
got a chip on his shoulder.
He does, and he sees how his dad is kind of stoic and behaves. He wants to impress his dad, and his dad's kind of the like guy in charge, like you said, and so he needs to prove himself. And so by proving himself, he's crapping on the guy that his dad probably talks on the new kid, and on the guy that his dad's probably like, because Paz and Din, they have such a frenemy relationship in the sense that sometimes you think Paz is an outright villain, and then there's episodes like this where you're like, they're clearly buddies.
Right.
And it's not an inconsistent characterization. I don't think that's the case, but it makes you think about it all the time. It makes you think constantly about it.
There are relationships like this in real life all the time.
Yeah, there are. And so the whole dynamic between Ragnar and Grogu is going to be really interesting. And so it'll be really cool to see how that kind of develops and blossoms and all of that. And so right after this, we see Grogu and Ragnar start the dart competition, and they are firing darts at each other. Well, Ragnar's firing them at Grogu. You got to get struck 3 times to lose, and it's a sparring match. And they're not darts, they're paintballs. But Grogu is hesitant the first 2 times, and I think this is a combination of a lot of factors.
Yeah, size. He's a baby.
he's a baby. That's true.
I mean, well, not literally, obviously.
Sure.
But for all intents and purposes.
He's like 6. I mean, if you take Yoda living to 900 being the standard, which it might not be, but let's say it is, and then you have Grogu being 50-something, 55 maybe, then he's only 6 years old. In if we do it proportional to human years, we don't know how they age. This is all speculation.
Right.
But you're right. He's a baby. He's brand new. He has not been trained at all as a Mandalorian. And he has been trained as a Jedi in a galaxy where Jedi were previously persecuted. He was just with one of the only Jedi in the galaxy who trained him to do all of this stuff. But Grogu doesn't make it a habit of revealing his force powers to people that he doesn't trust. Not that he doesn't trust the Mandalorians, but there's 100 people there, 100 basic strangers to him.
Right. And you said it when they're persecuted, jumping the gun a little bit, he probably lived in an era where it was like, do not reveal who you are.
Right.
Not only, but he had his appearance going against him the whole time.
Yep.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
And so, he has to untrain himself from being a recluse,
right,
to being social.
Yep.
I don't know what that's like. That's got to be quite the hurdle.
Well, and the way he was so easily able to commune with Ahsoka and communicate his thoughts to her, and the way he interacts with things, he doesn't have the mind of a baby. He doesn't even seem to have the mind of a 6-year-old. He might have the mind of a kid Ragnar's age. And so it's part of his speech block may be mental. It might not just be an age thing. It may be because
there's a lot of credence
not
for that.
Interacted with people in that way, like you said. I mean, there's a lot pointing to the speech block might not just be an age thing.
Correct.
And so we have Grogu and Ragnar duel in this dart match. Ragnar strikes him twice, and then Din gets down, gets fatherly, and says, "I know you can do this. I've seen you do it.
Show him what you knew."
Yeah, exactly. And that's all Grogu needs. He just needed the pep talk from his dad because the Mandalorian judge says, "Ready." Grogu hops over Ragnar. Ragnar turns around. Grogu hops over him again, fires 3 darts right into his chest.
Yeah. KO.
It was awesome. I mean, it was really cool. Again, it's Attack of the Clones Yoda. That's exactly what it is. They're not pulling punches because people were critical of that when it came out. At least some people. A bunch of people just thought it was cool. But a bunch of people were critical of that when it came out, that Yoda was doing all these flips. Well, they're just immediately like, this is what Grogu can do. He's about to be a young man. He can absolutely flip around and do this.
Now, this is how this species fights.
Yeah.
They cannot, their legs are 18 inches at most.
I think that's a big exaggeration.
Well, yeah, not even that one.
His Grogu's are like
I'm talking like an adult size.
Right, you're right.
Adult size.
Uh-huh.
And Yoda walked around with his version of a bassinet, right?
Yeah, he floated around.
Yeah.
He didn't walk.
So
except for
mobility
really
is
slowly.
an issue. And in combat, You have to, this species has to do this.
Right. And think of the level of concentration and forceability it takes to even do this. I mean, we see Luke do this. He's a full-grown human man, and it wears him out in Empire Strikes Back. It's a lot easier for him when he's a master, 5 years down the line from Empire Strikes Back. But even still, it's not a necessity for Luke's fighting style. It's not a necessity for humans to do this.
Right. For humanoids, it's a occasionally and purposefully employed tactic. For Grogu, this is part and parcel.
Yeah,
he has to do it all the time.
It's his lifestyle. This is the only way he's going to be able to overcome odds.
One of the Lego games I was playing with my wife, with Yoda, that was how you could either walk around with his cane inches at a time, or you sat there and hop. And he did his little every time he jumped.
Yeah, you're right. I know exactly what you're talking about.
Slam the controller down.
The complete
you are
saga.
Changing characters, Ryan. Not playing with you.
And then the Yoda death sound. It's iconic. Lego Yoda is so iconic. Lego Grogu will be even more iconic.
Even more. It's coming.
He has to at least make the grunt sounds, because Yaddle didn't make the grunt sounds. Again, Yoda, way more famous than Yaddle. They're gonna model Grogu off of Yoda. I hope that Grogu's got little high-pitched grunts all the time.
Right.
So, we move on through the scene. Ragnar he's not pouting. He's just a little dejected. He's like, I lost to this baby. And he's going and looking off in a lake. And then over the mountain comes a pterosaur, which is this Legends concept that's in like two things, like an old comic book.
So we don't know the name of this planet. Could we call it Space Australia?
That's exactly what. Yes, exactly. It's basically Space Australia, because they're on this planet. First scene, giant Godzilla crocodile monster attacks the whole covert. Then this pterosaur comes and attacks the whole covert, and it's like, there's got to be another place to train, man. I am sold on the fact that this has to be in Mandalore space, because why else would they be so dedicated to this? Why didn't you stay on Ring Planet? Obviously you couldn't stay on Navarro, but you could go back there now.
Right.
There are remote parts of Navarro where you could have your covert and still not be in this much danger.
Yeah, that's probably always been a slight criticism. It's like, there's one city on one planet.
Right.
Or there's one city on a whole planet that you can exist on. No, everywhere else is a wasteland.
Yeah, exactly. I've always heard that described as Star Wars planets must be all the size of Pluto or smaller. Like, they have to be so tiny for that to exist. And obviously, whatever, it's a fantasy world. It's Star Wars, you roll it out on a map, in a fantasy map, and it's just a bunch of settlements everywhere. Also, the Outer Rim is a bunch of settlements everywhere. There's one or two towns
and
because
the best
they are
place to
settled.
hide. Right.
Exactly.
So probably so dense and so spread out that why would I do my trading out there when I can stop at 2 stops in the Outer Rim, or I can stop at 10 in the middle.
Well, and Naboo's just a mid-rim world, but we see even in Naboo, there's the Gungan city, there's Theed, there's references to other villages and settlements on Naboo. Like, it's a place in the movie where we see them traverse planets. And on Tatooine, there's at least 3 planets.
Yeah,
Mos Pelgo, Mos Espa, and Mos Eisley.
Yeah, cities. Yep.
Yeah. Sorry, yeah, 3 planets.
Geonosis isn't far, right, from Tatooine.
Well, yeah, they're right beside each other. So we continue with Ragnar. Over comes the pterosaur over the mountain range, snatches this kid up like it's an eagle and a mouse, or a falcon and a mouse. I mean, it's nothing to this pterosaur, and it flies away. Din pulls his blaster, and then Paz tells him, no, you're going to make him kill the kid. And so they take off on their jetpacks to go after him. And he flies for so far and so long. And we don't know what the lifespan on a Mandalorian jetpack is, but they fly for pretty far in a lot of these things. And so, especially in the beginning of Rebels Season 4, we see them traverse quite a bit of ground on jetpacks.
Right.
And so this is a long ways. And so you're kind of like, what's going to happen? They've basically given up, and they don't even know where the thing's nest is, because Paz says it always flies away. They can never catch it.
Yeah.
And he doesn't sound as dejected as I would expect him to, as this is his kid.
Yeah, we don't know it at this point.
But he does. He knows it.
If it were me, I'd start running.
Right. And so then, flying right behind them, we get a shot of Bo-Katan's Cormac-class fighter. And did you notice the shot that they chose to use for the Cormac-class fighter?
Yeah, the sun going down.
Yeah, right. Which is an homage to what film? Do you know? You always get me on movie references, and it was an homage to Apocalypse Now, Francis Ford Coppola's movie set in Vietnam. And George Lucas and Francis Ford Coppola are best friends. George Lucas almost directed that movie.
Oh my goodness!
And so it's a direct homage to the Black Hawk helicopters flying into the sunset in Vietnam. It's a really cool
Hueys,
shot.
Blackhawks weren't around then. But,
Okay, sorry, my bad. Whatever helicopter was flying in Vietnam at the time, flying into the sunset. And also, this shot was already replicated in Star Wars. It was replicated in The Force Awakens with TIE fighters flying into the Jakku sunset.
Oh, cool.
So it's, there's layers and layers to these references here.
Right. That we all know and love.
Yeah, exactly. So all the Mandos go back. Bo-Katan says she tracked it to its nest. She knows where it is. And so they're making a plan. It's Armorer, Din, Paz, Bo-Katan.
Yeah, and Bo-Katan is really stepping up here.
Oh, yeah.
Tried and true leadership. And so this makes me think that this is leading to some sort of, like, we saw her failure, right, in episode 2.
Mm-hmm.
And, like, that was the lowest of the low.
Yep.
And we're inching up. What's that adage? Something about hitting rock bottom. When you only have, once you hit rock bottom,
there's nowhere to go but up.
Nowhere to go but up.
Yep.
Well, she's on rocket fuel, right?
Yes.
Saving the day for planning all this stuff out.
Well, and
it's so cool to see.
It's perfect for a character because she's been with us, the audience, for 15 years or close to it, and she's older than. We don't know the Armorer's age. We don't know about the Armorer, but we can confidently say she's older and much more experienced than Paz or Din because we've seen her be much more experienced. And so it's really nice to see them understand that part of Bo-Katan's character. We're not taking her back to square one. We're not saying she's not some kind of formidable leader. Like, she is a woman of action. She can get things done, and that's what she's doing in this scene, like you said.
Without hesitation, and that's a big deal. Or wait, or approval for somebody else.
Yeah.
So, like, as we established, some time has passed. She's been with them for weeks or months, right?
Right.
And so she's not only like, she was a newcomer at the end of the last episode.
Mm-hmm.
Now she's kept her helmet on this whole time, and she's in the swing of things.
Yeah, you're right. And so now that she's in the swing of things, they're making this plan. The Armorer is contributing. Everybody's contributing to this plan. It's really a cool formation of a Mandalorian team right here, in that she tells Paz, you need to get the Shriek Hawk training team involved here. And so Shriek Hawk is not Vizsla's clan. It's not their clan symbol. The Shriek Hawk symbol is actually the symbol for Death Watch. Whenever Death Watch committed a terrorist act, they would project an orange Shriek Hawk hologram over wherever they projected did their terrorism.
Yeah, that's crazy.
And it's their moniker, and for some reason they have a training team named after that. Could be just a part of all Mandalorian culture, but we know that the Children of the Watch are descended from Death Watch. We don't have literal exact confirmation, but there's all signs point to Death Watch.
Right.
And so this is just a little another homage to that.
Little Easter egg type thing.
Yeah.
Tidbit in there, a morsel.
So the Armorer sends them on their way, the strike team, like 8 Mandos. It's Din, Paz, Bo-Katan, and a few other guys, 5 or 6.
And Grogu stays behind, right?
Right, because he's too young, is what the Armorer says. But the Armorer takes him into the forge and begins to just have a conversation with him. And that conversation is really important because we learn a lot about Mandalorian culture here, and we learn a lot about the role of a Foundling, and we learn a lot about Grogu himself.
Yes, so fun here. The Armorer says is forging a piece of armor. Oh, and a really cool scene. Grogu, the way he walks into the cave, I saw a lot of remarks, and everybody I've seen talk to reacted to how he able to move a little faster and how cute he is when he walks in. But yeah, what does she say here? The forge does what? Look at my notes. I don't want to butcher this quote.
Refines? No. Yeah, you'll have to check your notes. I didn't get the quote down for that one.
If you wish to become a Mandalorian, there's much to attend to. And then they walk into the cave. The forge is the heart of Mandalorian culture. Just as we shape steel, we shape ourselves. And so this triggers a flashback. And quick aside here, I'm wanting to know what the Guinness Book of World Records for most expensive puppet is. Because this thing, we remarked on it a lot. How many scenes did they shoot? How many takes did they do to interact with this puppet, shooting with darts and stuff, right? And then jumping it over and reacting to it. And because Grogu's looking around, he looks up at his dad a couple of times with this hesitant look on his face. And then in this scene, when they're leading up to the flashback, is extreme sadness.
Yes,
like
he's so emotive.
Trepidatious, right? And so it's a puppet. We're not looking at CGI. Maybe they CGI parts of the puppet. I don't know.
Right. I don't think they do. I don't know either, but I don't think so.
The emotiveness capability of this puppet is off the charts.
It's very impressive.
And so I'm wondering how much of this puppet costs,
Right.
And I'm curious if it's outside of something like some giant puppet from some old 80s movie.
Right.
If this is
Star Wars Return of the Jedi, Jabba the
Right.
Hutt, perhaps.
Right.
That might be the only one.
He's foam latex, right? I don't know. But this thing is full of animatronics, and they just had some dude flapping his giant
you've
mouth.
got I've seen the scenes of him walking beside Luke, and it's got two guys operating sticks for like all of his limbs.
Right.
It's really like there's a lot of obviously it takes two people to pilot a puppet the size of a football.
Yeah, but there's some dude with this console who remotely
Right.
controls this thing. It's probably a $500,000 puppet at this point, right?
Oh yeah, certainly so.
But it's worth every penny, right?
Yeah.
It's so cool to see. So the flashback. You want to talk about that, or should I?
Well, we just need to jump into it together because you get the opening shot of Coruscant.
Oh my God.
We saw Coruscant last week. We saw Coruscant in the Bad Batch. We saw Coruscant on Andor.
They're really harping on this, aren't they?
I'm telling you, Coruscant may become the new Tatooine for the people who didn't like Tatooine showing up so much. I was not a detractor of Tatooine. It's an important part of the galaxy. We're on Coruscant a lot. And so I hope that the haters for Tatooine have the same energy towards Coruscant, and I know they won't because we're there all the time. But for some reason, Coruscant's more special
it's
to these
the center
haters.
of the galaxy.
It is. It is. A lot takes place there. But
Not center, but the seat of the galaxy.
we keep throwing it back to Order 66. This is the 5th calendar year in the real world that we have had an Order 66 scene premiere somewhere. Either Fallen Order, or the Book of Boba Fett, or Bad Batch, or others. And so we're back on Tatooine during Order 66, and it starts out with the Grogu from the Book of Boba Fett scenes. I mean, it's one for one. It's the door getting cut open, the Jedi guarding him, and the 501st Trooper
But
shooting.
this is the what happens next.
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
And so the Jedi get the youngling to the elevator. He goes down to the elevator, and who opens the who's there when it opens the door?
Well, we've already spoiled it. Kelleran Beck, played by Ahmed Best.
Ahmed Best. This hit me like a ton of bricks, man.
I know. It's so... When you see it's Ahmed Best and you're like, that's Ahmed Best, he's a Jedi, blah, 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 you're like, this
he's
is
not he's
so
a cool Jedi.
good for him.
2 lightsabers.
I know. And
a
he's
green,
great.
which we don't get to see many green sabers out there,
Right.
and a blue saber. He's got that filigree on his collar.
Yep.
So that's probably some honorific or something, right?
Right.
And then he handles those clone troopers.
Yep. And
He's got the stern look on his face.
he's really good. He's a master at deflecting him. I mean, they gave him such a cool character to be, and I'm so happy for him. So Ahmed Best shows up as Kelleran Beck 2 years ago, also in the real world, 2 years ago, in Star Wars Jedi Temple Challenge, which is a video or is a game show that premiered on StarWars.com, StarWarsKids.com. And it was hosted by Ahmed Best, and up until this point, no one was like, well, that
In character as
wasn't canon.
Kelleran Beck.
But exactly.
He introduced himself. I went and watched one of these episodes. So I grew up watching Nickelodeon, like Double Dare and all these. So
Right.
like game shows for kids is like ingrained into my soul. And I tried to watch this. It's a little bit. I'm 40 years old.
It's a
kinda
game
hard to
show for
watch.
kids. I didn't even
For
try
young
to
kids.
venture to
these,
watch it.
These kids are 12.
Yeah.
And it's not like they're teenagers running around doing stuff. But it's really cool. They're in Jedi training, going to gather the parts of their hilt.
Yeah,
to
get
make
to
a
see
lightsaber.
who Anakin kills.
They killed 2 of them after the first challenge.
So like, we get to see Ahmed Best in this role, but we never thought it was going to translate to anything bigger than the game show, which, I mean, it was already cool that he got to come and be this Jedi host on the game show, but to see his character come to life on screen, and, we talked about it in the rapid reactions, but for anyone listening who doesn't know, Ahmed Best played Jar Jar Binks. And when he played Jar Jar Binks, when those movies came out, it was really bad for him. I mean,
Right.
Jar Jar is one of the most criticized
Unjustly
characters
so,
in
but-
fiction. Yeah, it's not even Ahmed Best's fault. If you blame anyone for Jar Jar and the way he acts, you blame George Lucas.
Yeah.
But, the prequels had a lot of hate surrounding them, but Ahmed Best took a giant chunk of that.
And I'll tell you what, this is another phenomenon that any media really, but I'm not. Of course, when it came out, it's easy to fall in with a crowd and you try and be an objective and stuff. But what is it? 24 years on? I don't mind Jar Jar.
No, he's an integral part of the Phantom Menace. I don't dislike him at all. I see why he was in there. They scaled back his role so much in Attack of the Clones and Revenge of the Sith. I mean, if you're Ahmed Best in Revenge of the Sith, you're like, why am I even here? He says no lines of dialogue, and
he's the whole shebang is laid at his feet.
Yeah, exactly. So Jar Jar was not well received, and we know that. And Ahmed Best took a lot of that criticism, and so to get to see him come back and play this Jedi, and I'll mention that Ahmed Best. A lot of people don't know this. When George Lucas was writing and filming Revenge of the Sith, Ahmed Best pitched to him that what if Jar Jar helped save some Jedi younglings? George didn't want to go in that direction because obviously really wanted to limit the number of Jedi that survived the Purge. In the prequels, the only 2 Jedi that survived the Purge are Yoda and Obi-Wan. And so George didn't want to dilute that from the original trilogy, but Ahmed Best was really trying to pitch this idea, and he finally got to do it, and he saved perhaps the most important youngling that we know of.
Right. Well, and there's even more to this that we'll get to in a minute. So for these following scenes, he dispatches the clone troopers, force pushes one off down into the abyss.
Right. Off
so
the temple.
Cool. And jumps on a bark speeder. We don't get to see many bark speeders around. Clones are usually riding them, and I guess Jedi here and there, but not much. So it's cool to see a bark speeder. Right. They're the most sleek, coolest. In the Star Wars Galaxies video game, you could get one for your character. Mm-hmm. It was fun. It was, like the ones from Empire Strikes Back.
Right.
Or,
Revenge of the Sith.
And Return of the Jedi. That
the ones on Endor. Yeah,
the ones on Endor. They're kind of like, speeders, neat.
Right.
These things are like the Bentley of speeders, right? So
well, they got the gunner seat in
I know
them.
They're talking built for about war. A stupid little thing, but this matters to me, okay? Right. So, followed by the LAAT gunships.
Yep.
And you think they'd be smoked instantly, but it's a Jedi piloting, right? Not going to happen.
Mm-hmm.
And they go through a train tunnel that we saw in the last episode.
Exactly.
Swoop by Umate.
Yep.
Threw that in, so we got to see that.
Which was really
cool.
good.
I liked it.
I was happy they did that.
And then land on a platform.
But wait.
Okay.
I want to go to the train tunnel because this was my one nitpick in that he led the LAAT into the train tunnel. 1, why did the LAAT follow him into the train tunnel? 2, what happened to the train full of people that just smoked a spaceship? Like, what just happened there? That's like a plane crash. I mean, he killed hundreds of people. They're on Coruscant. We have no idea how many people are on that train.
That's awful.
It's so anyway, I just wanted to point that out that was a really odd choice for a Jedi to make.
Yeah.
And then so that again, it might just demonstrate how important Grogu is because this was such an odd scene. Not the whole scene. This was just a very odd 3-second moment where I was like, obviously, there was just a catastrophic disaster in that train tunnel.
Yeah.
But it's not the only disaster happening on Coruscant right now.
Yeah.
So,
lots of people.
Continue about going by Umate, and then where do they arrive?
They arrive on a landing platform with a Naboo starship on it.
A J-type Nubian starship, to be exact, which is one of Padme's old models.
Right. And so Padme is on Mustafar at this very moment, or on her way. We don't know exactly, right? And the soldiers who are guarding the ship immediately after the bark crashes and Kelleran rolls off, really cool little roll right here, superhero type thing almost, and the soldiers immediately walk up to him and say, "Kelleran Beck?" ? And so they know who he is.
Right.
It's obvious. And another thing is Kelleran said to Grogu, "My friends don't worry, I have a friend who's going to help us out."
Mm-hmm.
So who is the friend that Kelleran Beck / Ahmed Best is having help him out that also has access to a Naboo ship?
Right.
And we know Padme is off doing her own thing in her own ship.
Mm-hmm. Who would have these guards? Who would be part of the Naboo government?
Who would know and be friends? It's Jar Jar.
Right.
That's my theory.
I think it's
sound.
It's the most solid theory possible, certainly. I mean, other than them just throwing around, those Naboo royal guards are there for a reason. Senators are considered royalty on Naboo. Jar Jar is a representative for Naboo. So it makes total sense, unless the queen herself is on the planet, and even still, why would she be involved in this? And so I think the Jar Jar theory is perfectly sound. I think you're totally on the right track there.
And so not only does Ahmed Best and a.k.a. Keller and Beck literally get to help younglings out,
Right.
but Jar Jar does as an indirect result too.
Exactly. It's really, really cool. It would be, and this is a huge redemption for Jar Jar's character if that's the case. I mean, this would just really kind of rehabilitate Ahmed Best's Star Wars career. Not that he hasn't had a good career or anything like that, but this is helps his Star Wars career out.
So the second thing that we should talk about here is the Keller and Beck character. Game show host before this, probably just fine. I haven't watched all of them, right? We all like Ahmed Best. This character, in the few moments that we've seen, was killer.
Oh, he was great.
Literally and figuratively, right?
Right.
And I cannot wait to see more. What is he going to be in next?
I would assume he's a master, and also we at least know this isn't the end of Grogu's flashbacks. We don't know how he got with the pirates. We don't know what happened to him over the last 50 years. Like, we've got some time and some space to see what Keller and Beck's doing and what he's doing with Grogu.
Remind me who the group was we saw in Obi-Wan.
The Path.
Yeah. So we got potential there. Right.
Exactly.
So much cool stuff.
Yeah. There's a lot that could happen here. And so, I don't know if we're going to get any more Grogu flashbacks this season. I don't know if they're just going to say we're going to get one a season and kind of build Grogu's story from there. But we're definitely going to be getting some more information about Grogu down the line.
I'll tell you what. I want a Keller and Beck #1 comic book, and I'm going to the next convention that Ahmed Best is, and I want to stand in whatever line to get that thing signed.
Yeah. No, it's
great.
It's super
so
cool.
Great.
He was an awesome Jedi. He was an awesome character.
He's an awesome actor. I like him a lot.
Yes. And so the last thing I'll say about the flashback scene is people who are assigned to be the guards for royalty in Star Wars are willing to put their lives on the line.
We could presume they're all dead.
Yeah, they are. They are definitely all dead. They were like, take the ship. We're going to sit on this platform and gun down some people who were bred to be combatants, that were raised from birth to be soldiers, and we're going to protect this ship. It's the same thing as when we watched Bad Batch with Chuchi. Her guards sold out in that scene just to give her like 5 seconds of extra time. These guys are also willing to. So if you're a royalty in Star Wars, you probably have some really dedicated guards.
Right. That's so cool to think. And I guess Tamura Morrison, it was cool to hear. Clones in action is so fun.
Yes,
and there's a lot of little bitty dialogue. Everybody off the ship, I don't know exactly what they say.
Right.
And you can tell Tamura Morrison's done all this dialogue. Really cool.
I'd like to see, so the clones jumping off the LAAT gunship. So everyone knows in Revenge of the Sith, there wasn't a single clone actor on set. They were all CGI. And also the same for Attack of the Clones. It was just Tamora Morrison playing Jango. And so when you see all of those clones, we know for the Book of Boba Fett scenes and for some of these scenes that they filmed real people in real costumes. But when they're jumping off the LAT gunship, I really want to know, is that like 10 people in clone costumes? Because we're starting to get on a number where there's a lot of people out here in clone costumes. It's really cool to get to see, and it just looks so much more visually appeasing when you see them in costumes. I mean, the CGI on the prequels has aged really well. I'm not here to criticize it that much, but I will say that when you watch the scenes of just clones and droids fighting each other on like the 1 second, 2 second scenes in Revenge of the Sith.
Like an Utapau or something like that.
Yeah, exactly. You can obviously tell this is like a video game cutscene, basically.
Yeah. So man, what a flashback, man.
Right.
We got everything we could ever want out of this thing.
It's super
We had
good.
no idea it was coming, right?
You're right.
We had no idea. No leaks, no spoilers, no nothing.
I know, we only saw the one little scene in the trailer, and that was it. And we had no idea who was cutting through that door. There were so many theories, and none of the theories were Ahmed Best.
This is why we're Star Wars fans,
Yeah,
for stuff like this. Because we get the best stuff made just for us.
Yep, you're right. So we continue, and it's nice to see that during this forging scene and the armorer talking to Grogu, that he can kind of connect with what she's saying and have this reminiscence and remember his past right here. And so, and again, this is just known to Grogu. He doesn't talk. He didn't tell Din this. Like, this is inner monologue Grogu. We're in Grogu's mind right here.
Right.
And so then the armorer finishes what she's doing, which is forging Grogu a brand new piece of armor.
A rondelle.
Right.
I had to go look
Explain
this
what
up.
that is.
So it's obviously a circle piece of armor, right?
Right.
And
I thought he was going to wear it like a little hat.
like a little hat, like
Yeah.
a like
It was
a yarmulke or whatever.
Yeah,
it is.
exactly. Like I thought he was just going to put it right on top of his head.
Yeah, that's a stretch. But no, the rondelle, I had to look this up. Obviously, I'm not a medieval armor expert, but it's used in a lot of places. I think if you Google search this thing, it's like it protects like incoming like arrows or sword strikes from going up into your armpit or something like that. But you could wear it anywhere. I've also seen them at shoulder joints. And you could also put them at wrist joints or something like that. Well, Grogu's this
So it's mainly to protect joints, like you're saying.
joints or
okay.
or sensitive areas because like if you have somebody with I'm assuming I'm not a combat expert, but what these things are, the examples on the images I saw on Google they're kind of cone shaped, right? And this one has the symbol on it, so it's not. And for all we know, it is kind of concave,
Right.
right? And so what these like I would assume in the Middle Ages when somebody's rushing you with a spear or doing a thrust maneuver with a sword, and if you're fast enough, and which obviously Grogu's going to be with precognition, right?
Right.
You could use this, put your rondelle into it, and it would deflect it into a safer. But this rondelle goes directly on his chest.
Right.
And something that occurred to me in my second watch through is this is where he was hit with the paintballs from the darts. So I wouldn't be, and this is Beskar. She specifically says it is the duty of Mandalorians to contribute scraps of Beskar to Foundlings, right? So this, I just realized this as we're speaking. She places it on his chest, and we know that Beskar is impervious to blaster strikes for the most part. I guess if you had an E-web or something and you took multiples in one hole, you probably wouldn't be too happy.
Could melt it.
Right. But any hand-carried weapon is going to be impervious. It's on his chest.
Right.
What is a trope that you've seen of like the soldier with a book in his thing?
Right. Oh yeah, you're right.
This
The
is
book
a
protects his
huge
heart.
telegraph. So
Grogu's definitely getting shot in the
he's
chest.
getting shot in the chest,
Yeah.
and going to reveal the rondelle with a singe mark on it, and then probably beat the ever living tar out of who shot him.
Yes, yeah, and it's awesome to see the clan Mudhorn symbol on
Yes.
there. We know they're a clan of two. They're firmly part of this clan now. Or he's always been part of the clan, but now he's got the symbolism with it. It's really nice. It was a cool scene, and it's cool to get to see
And
him
it goes
grow in
over
this way.
his Beskar chainmail.
Yes.
So we get to see like you have to really pay close attention. You can see fringes of it under his robe or
Yep.
little whatever smock, whatever the name for that thing is.
Right.
But it's totally exposed here, and she places it on his chest, and it's really cool to see how he's wearing this stuff.
Yeah, no, it absolutely is. So we see this Grogu scene, really important, and then we get, we get another cut back to the Mando war party. So we're back in the action. We're back to go save Ragnar. And so this scene was really cool because it's Bo-Katan starting to try to understand the clan, starting to become part of the clan. And so this is indications to us she hadn't been part of the clan for long enough because she asks, how do you eat with your helmet on? Like, it's not the same thing as Pog soup. It's not drinking under your helmet, which we saw Din do. This is literally eating food with, like, utensils. And so she's like, how do you do this? And they explain it really easily. You split off in all directions. You get your own little hiding space and you eat. And then they have such respect for Bo-Katan, and she's obviously the leader of the war party that they say, as the leader, or Paz
says,
that's important that Paz says it, is that as the leader of the war party, you get the honor of staying by the fire to eat.
Yeah, and so like where we live in the summer, I've slept out under the stars, not next to a fire. This is someplace cold.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Gets cold in the desert at night.
Yeah.
Yep.
It's in Space Australia.
Yep.
So this is a huge deal. They're answering questions that the audience has asked from day one.
Right.
You can't remove your helmet. Well, I mean, you can't have you removed your helmet, and that implies an intentional act to expose your face to anyone,
Right.
but enemies primarily, right? Because they want their identity concealed to protect their family. The whole superhero Spider-Man trope, right?
Right.
I assume.
Well, and they, it's such a part of their identity. They just want you to, your face is your helmet to this group of Mandalorians.
Right. And so, but not in this case.
Right.
So you can consume your meals, but this also implies so many other things. Obviously, you can bathe, without your helmet on. You probably have to cut your own hair, obviously, but shave, I would assume, because if you had a large beard under a helmet, it would be extremely uncomfortable.
Yep.
And but like, I don't know, pick your nose.
right.
Brush your teeth, right? Because you still have to do that. And then most importantly, like, how do we put this? Be with your partner.
See, I don't think we talked about this in the rapid reactions. I thought about it longer. No, there's no way. You still have to wear your helmet. The charge is no other person. It's not no other person except your partner. It's no other person. I think they got it. The helmet stays on during that.
I hope not.
I think it totally does. I don't see any way it doesn't.
Well, so my point is, there's exceptions to
No,
wearing a helmet.
absolutely. Yes, your point still totally stands.
Yeah. And I mean, there's the overt obvious that we can totally point to. Eating a meal that we just literally saw.
Right.
And then cutting your hair, brushing your teeth. Or maybe there's some future way, like a back to chew. I don't know.
Sure.
But
well, and from what I
don't think it's much of a leap to go to being in an intimate setting that you can take.
I don't think so. It's another person. But what I will say is that I think the logical leap here is that anytime you're alone, you can have your helmet off. I mean, if Din was alone in his starfighter or, rocking around in the gunship alone, I think he can have his helmet off. I don't think that's an issue by the crew.
Or what about in front of IG-11?
Yeah, exactly.
Would that have been, I mean, because it's not.
I mean, they explain that. It's not another person. He's a robot. He's a computer.
Right. Okay.
So, but we know it can't be with your intimate partner because of the scenes where they are on the village where they defeated the ATST and the Klatooinian gang. That he wouldn't let her take his helmet off. He wouldn't even be in the same room with her without his helmet off.
They're in a village surrounded by.
They were in a house alone when one of those times happened, and so I think the partner thing can't happen. But it's every other time you are alone. I think the helmet's totally.
I mean,
off.
we're talking about religious fanatics here, and so if there's some like a married couple, maybe that's different.
Perhaps we don't know. We are going to continue to see.
I'm waiting with bated breath to find out.
Right, this is the most important question. So we move on. They scale the mountain. They get to the nest of the pterosaur, and they have a heat signature. Paz runs and charges it, and they say, wait, and he goes, but it's my son. And so this is the reveal that we now have, ladies and gentlemen, we now have a fourth Vizsla. Right. There is all kinds of Vizslas. They are such an important family,
And sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead. You got it.
So I want to make I always have trouble. I'm a weirdo somehow. We're having foundlings in here. We're saying Grogu is Din's son. Well, not literally. It's not flesh and blood, right? We can assume here correctly. I think that Ragnar is a flesh and blood child.
Yeah, I think so. I think that one's clear. They would have to. I mean, they're the same species, so it's an automatic. You kind of think it. Obviously, they wear the same armor color. I don't think that's enough of a distinction because they all just wear colors of armor. I mean, Bo-Katan's followers wore the same
and
colors
later he
as
calls
her.
him Dad. And there's
exactly.
This, like, Paz is like risking the group. Bo-Katan says, we need to clear the area first. Mm-hmm. So it's not just some casual foundling.
Right.
It is.
He cares about
He's
this
my
kid.
son.
I think you're right. That they are literally. I think that his name is Ragnar Vizsla. I don't think that's a stretch. I think that he is literally a biological descendant of Tar Vizsla. And so for those of you who don't know about the Vizslas, maybe you're just watching The Mandalorian, or maybe you've even only watched the Clone Wars and have not seen Rebels. Tar Vizsla was the first Mandalorian Jedi, the first uniter of the Mandalorians, and he basically founded the planet of Mandalore, united all the clans. And he's not the first Vizsla we learn about, but he is the first Vizsla chronologically. And then somewhere down the line, something went horribly wrong because his terrorist descendant, Pre-Vizsla, who is wholly evil, runs Death Watch, is a terrorist for many seasons of the Clone Wars, and then he makes a deal with the devil, makes a deal with Darth Maul.
Almost literally.
Yeah, to take over Mandalore, and he pays the price with his life. And then we know Paz is related to them somehow because his last name is Vizsla. And now we know Ragnar is related to them because Ragnar is Paz's son, Ragnar Vizsla. And so there's a lot going on here. The Vizslas, we got one Vizsla who we don't really know what his motivations or morality are. No one's come out and said Tar Vizsla was evil. No one has really come out and said he was good because it says he was a Jedi. It doesn't say he died a Jedi. And so we don't know about Tar. We know Pre was bad. And then we know Paz is this really stoic, guy that can be a total jerk or can be a good friend to Din. And so we don't know where Ragnar is going to fall. We don't know where the Vizsla name is going to go. We know Bo-Katan has history with this last name. And to our knowledge, we don't even know if she knows Paz's last name yet. And so there's a lot down the line for significance around the Vizsla last name and around Ragnar.
Yeah, I hope we get some fruition on that. And so immediately after Ragnar, this is where we first literally find out his name that's spoken out loud, right?
Yep.
He's caught Paz disturbs some chicks, I guess the best say it, pterosaur chicks.
Yep.
And they're trying to eat him. But then the mother pterosaur appears, and Paz pulls a tree branch over him, a part of the nest, and the pterosaur goes to feed Ragnar to the chicks.
Yep.
Yeah, and it's
he coughs him up just like a bird.
And he first says help, so they're telling the audience here that he's not coughing up a corpse, right?
Right. Yeah.
And so we're asking ourselves, they spent the night at the bottom of this tower, and he was gone all day yesterday. How did he not get eaten?
Yeah.
How's he still alive?
Exactly.
But
Why
whatever.
is he still alive? But you're right. Whatever.
And then the action scene ensues. Ragnar Ragnar falls out, and Paz jumps in his space pretty much back into the mouth to distract. So Ragnar isn't chewed to pieces and divvied up into 3 pieces,
right?
For the chicks, and the pterosaur flies off
with Ragnar in his claws.
With Ragnar in his claws, yep,
and Paz in his mouth.
And so then the pursuit happens.
Yep.
Really cool scenes here.
Yeah, so the Mandalorians are flying with their jetpacks, trying to track down the pterosaur. Paz gets free. Ragnar's still in the claws. There's a lot of shots and knives and Bo-Katan jumping onto the pterosaur.
She loses a piece of armor. I had to rewind it to see what it's her right pauldron.
Yep. And so she is fighting the pterosaur this way, and there's just a lot of Mandalorian action right here. They finally take the pterosaur down in a clever way where they tie its wings up with ropes, with lariats that they've shot. And so they wrap around. The pterosaur loses its grip on Ragnar, and then Din grabs Ragnar and saves him. And then we see the pterosaur hit the water.
Fall victim to another space Australia monster.
the same one from the first episode. And all you have to say on this scene is there's always a bigger fish.
Right.
This is exactly
Phantom Menace vibes going on here, right?
Exactly. And so we see this happen, and then Paz is super grateful to Din, and they take Ragnar and the Mandalorians and the Cormac fighter back to the covert.
Yeah. And so everybody's elated to see Ragnar and Paz walk off the fighter. Everybody's so happy. Grogu saunters up a little bit, and the armor's leading the way. And Din says, or was it Bo-Katan? I don't remember who. They said, we have 3 more foundlings.
Yeah.
She says, we have 3 more foundlings. And they've brought the pterosaur chicks back to the covert. And so my remark here, you heard it back in the Rapid Reactions, these are going to be flying mounts for 3 characters.
Yeah.
Bo-Katan, Din Djarin, and somebody else. Who do you think?
You're right. I don't know. Grogu? No, I think probably if we're getting flying mounts for them for some reason, it's got to be the Armorer Paz. Those are the only 2 Mandos that we've seen that have any kind of like presence.
Gravitas, to do that.
And so I would say that the mounts are going to be that. And they're going in to save the other one. Of the 4, the 3 of them are using the mounts to save the other one. Will be my
so we
prediction.
still have left from the trailer the Mandalorian descending on Navarro.
We have a lot of scenes to get to in Always in Motion. We got a lot to talk about right here. So it almost wraps up after the mounts. The last part is the Armorer notices that Bo-Katan is in need of repair. They go into the forge, and Bo-Katan is having a new pauldron made for her, and she asks if she can have a mythosaur and a night owl at the same time. And the Armorer's like, yeah, I mean, the mythosaur is our planet, our creed symbol, not the
mythosaur belongs to every Mandalorian.
Exactly, not your own. So you can absolutely have both. I mean, Boba Fett famously had a mythosaur on his pauldron, and so we see her forge this, and then Bo-Katan slowly starts to prod. You know, what if I had seen a mythosaur? And the Armorer is not catching her drift. She's like, oh yeah, that'd be an amazing vision.
And she makes the piece of armor after she said, you have done the highest order of the creed, save a foundling.
Yes.
And so this is important because this is cementing Bo-Katan into Children of the Watch, pretty much.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. I mean, she has done her act and her deed for the group that they see her value. She has skyrocketed in the ranks of this organization.
And so, you can probably just get any piece of armor as you need it, but it's not Beskar.
Right.
And so by saying this stuff, she's receiving a huge honor by getting her armor replaced by a piece of Beskar.
Well, her armor is all totally Beskar. Hers is, because she was around before the Purge. Like all of her armor is Beskar.
If you're one of the guys who's holding a stake, leading the thing off, who lost a pauldron, he'd just get a piece of steel.
No, I think all theirs is Beskar. I think everybody's wearing Beskar. Because we have the lines from Sabine and Rebels that all of it is reforged Mandalorian armor that they've passed down. So I think that all of it's Beskar. But the importance of her receiving this piece...
When we interview Filoni, I want to ask you.
Yes, okay. It'll be an important question. But the importance of her getting this piece is that the armor talks about it's not going to be as refined or nice as your piece of armor, but Bo-Katan obviously accepts this armor. It's a huge honor for her to even be receiving this. This is a big deal. And she's probing with the armorer this whole time, what if I saw a mythosaur? And the armorer's not catching her drift. And then she says, no, I did see one. And the armorer's like, you will see a lot of things. And then she reemphasizes, no, I saw a mythosaur. And she just says, this is the way. And it is so ambiguous here. First things first is, after last week, everybody is talking about Bo-Katan's being malicious, including us, including me. Is Bo-Katan being malicious and she's not telling the children of the Watch? Is she just shaken up? Like, what's going on? This is clear she had no malicious intentions, but she knew no one was going to believe her because the most zealot does not believe her.
Right. And it's so impactful because we talked about it. It's so meaningful for, like, this mythosaur, is it going to play some role this season? We got 4 episodes left. It's going to play a role somewhere. They're putting it on their pauldrons and stuff. And so, yeah, I can't wait to see what happens next.
I can't either. And the last thing I'll say about this episode is in our last Always in Motion segment last week, I was making some pretty firm predictions, and I was like 100% wrong. Because Carl Weathers directed this episode. Carl Weathers plays Greef Karga. There's no Navarro. There's no Greef Karga. There's no mention of Greef Karga. Yeah. I was, that was totally a complete miss shot. I am so surprised that Carl Weathers directed this.
There's no post-credit scenes. It's like, we're in trouble. Need help.
Right. Exactly. I was very surprised that there was no inclination. And he is such a good director, though. This episode really paced well, and he did a great job. It's really impressive, and it's even cooler that he directed an episode that had nothing to do with his character. So I am happy about that. And then the Dave Filoni writing, I thought maybe they'd introduce some small secondary Rebels character. It's clear the reason they brought Dave on was to write all of Grogu's flashback, was to make sure that they had all the timeline right, make sure they were fitting in everything they needed to for Order 66.
Yeah, and that Kellen Beck integrated really well.
Right.
Fun scenes.
Yeah, it was a great episode of The Mandalorian. I really enjoyed it. I was worried when I saw the length that it wasn't going to be as good, but it totally delivered.
Yeah, it's all these, you got pyramids, great epic construction projects are built with little blocks.
Yep, you're right. So now I want to get after Always in Motion.
Difficult to see. Always in Motion is the future.
Colin, what is your Always in Motion prediction, knowing we've still got some Navarro trailer scenes out there?
So the scenes that popped in my mind the most are, like I said, the Mandalorians descending from the ship, whatever it is.
Some jump ship.
And so I think that's pretty obvious. The pirates are going to land and cause some trouble.
So you're saying next episode is where this is coming?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
I agree with you, but that's only because it's shot in the dark. They threw me off with this episode. There's like no indication of what's going to happen next. Right. Is it the Empire? Is it the pirates? We don't know.
The next thing we have is the droid cantina.
Yes, yeah.
We've forgotten to mention that a few times.
We have. I just completely left my mind.
And so I'm willing to bet at this point that this was a cut scene that they threw in the trailer to kind of.
You don't think droid cantina happens at all? I'll be disappointed because I was excited for that scene.
But this happens all the time.
Yes, it does.
I've watched a lot of movies. Yeah. And all these other things, and they put stuff in trailers that they don't put anywhere, and it's so disappointing. And there's been some notable ones over the years that I can't think of, but it's like, where's this? You know?
Right.
And I want to see a droid cantina. I'm playing Should I reveal that? Have we already
Yeah,
revealed it?
no, go
I'm
ahead.
playing a droid in the RPG.
Yeah,
I like droids. I want to see more of them.
Right. No, I want to see the droid cantina really badly. See how Din reacts.
Again, when we interview Filoni, we're going to see that.
You know who wasn't in this episode? Now that we're talking about this, no R5D4. Didn't see him once. Didn't see him in the background. Didn't see him beeping along. I mean, he's there. Obviously, he didn't leave. He didn't
Right.
get on his ship and get away. But I guess he's just powered down. I guess he's just hanging
in
out.
his charge cycle.
Yeah, exactly.
So, and then I guess the only thing left is, you can say Mandalorians are united. I mean, that's pretty solid, right? I mean,
We've got a giant chunk of Mandalorians together.
so what? Something's going to happen there. And then we have the Imperial question mark.
Right.
And so, in these last 4 episodes, they're going to go back to Mandalore and repel an Imperial threat.
Yeah. No, I think you're right. I think the timeline, at least what would make most sense, is Navarro, and the Navarro stuff happens next episode. The droid cantina is probably even just looped into that, or it comes in the next episode. Probably has to do with IG-11. And then the final episodes are about the Imperial threat.
And all of these final episodes of The Mandalorians are these epic adventures, right? Luke Skywalker showing up.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
we're going to get something huge at the end.
Something huge. And I think it's going to have to do with the Mandalorians and the Imperials.
Yeah. Yeah. Certainly so.
So what are your predictions?
Those are, I mean, you echoed mine. I don't really have anything to go beyond on these predictions. I do think that with what we saw last episode with Pershing and Elia Kane, they're not going to let that plot line rest for 2 episodes in a row. So we're going to get that somehow.
Yeah, I totally spaced on that.
They're going to incorporate that into the next episode in some way. Probably, if I had to guess, maybe a reverse sandwich in that they do a little bit of Elia Kane stuff at the beginning. Most of the episodes, Mando, a little bit of Elia Kane stuff at the end.
Yeah, they wouldn't spend the better part of an hour developing that
Not
character
again.
just to not bring him back.
Yes, well, they will bring him back, but they won't invest as much again until they meet, until Mando is now involved with those characters again.
Right.
And so they'll bring those back somehow.
Yeah, so to add on to yours, that's got to be the Imperial connection. Elia Kane smuggles him back. They're doing some clone stuff. Yada, yada, yada.
Well, we don't even know if Pershing's still alive. They hit him with the highest mind flare wipe you could. He could just be his brain
A vegetable
scrambled because he
somewhere?
was a liability,
I
being
think-
part of the New Republic.
That's probably a... he's a vegetable now. We're going to take him to facility on Wayland Planet.
Well, exactly. We've seen so much in recent Bad Batch episodes. And for those of you who haven't watched the Bad Batch episode today, it's awesome. You should check it out.
Yes.
We're going to talk about the last 4 episodes of the Bad Batch, the last 4 of the season next week on a podcast.
It'll be its own podcast episode.
Yeah, we will spend all the time we need to and have to on these 4 episodes of the Bad Batch. But this episode this week was worth watching.
Can I give you a fun little tidbit?
Yeah, go ahead.
What planet do you think... what's the little city they're on, the island city in Bad Batch?
I saw this.
You saw this?
Yeah, it's Pabu is the name of the
Pabu,
city.
and people are joking. It's on Scarif.
Yeah. I've seen
laughed
this
so hard.
Well, when you look at Scarif and you look at the way that planet is closed out, when they just show the planet, they look like they fit together and make one planet. There's got to be more island water planets out there in the galaxy. Hopefully.
Yeah, in a planet with billions of stars and even more billions of planets.
Right, exactly. And so I don't think it's that, but I have seen the theory.
Yeah, it'd be fun.
It would be fun.
Very bad.
But very fun. So, that's what we're doing next. We've got the Bad Batch episode down the pipeline. We've got the next episode of Mando down the pipeline. We've got a lot of exciting stuff down the pipeline. That's the station news. Let's pivot on to the Star Wars news, because we got a lot to cover right here in the HoloNet news.
You made the HoloNet.
So, Colin, we're going to go through these articles based on not the most to talk about. We're going to start with the one that I'll probably say is the worst, and we're going to go to the one that's the best. But honestly, there's only one bad article here, and that is that Damon Lindelof, who we've talked a lot about on here, we've been very excited about, Watchmen writer, has exited the Star Wars project that he was working on. He submitted a first draft of a speech in February, and then he left. And now there is a new writer. Script. Yeah, not speech, script. And now there is a new writer involved. So this is the 14th Star Wars project to have some kind of shakeup. It has not been canceled. A lot of people have been saying that it's been canceled. That is not true. I still think it's going to get announced at Celebration in a month. But the first writer has exited.
Yeah, so we got into quite a lengthy debate about what this implies, right? And it's real easy to be and I'm not accusing you of this, Shirley, but you can see a lot of stuff on the internet. Like, there's a lot of clickbaity thumbnails from a lot of other commenters on YouTube and others such that it's real easy to be chicken little about how Disney is handling Star Wars.
Oh, there are a lot of people that are chicken little about it. This is, especially this news, they're saying that this is the end of Star Wars.
I want to say, I feel like some stuff comes in threes. You know, this last episode with Dr. Pershing is the lowest rated episode of The Mandalorian. Mm-hmm. And then you have this Lindelof news. Mm-hmm. And you could probably throw some other little things in there. I can't think of a third one off the top of my head. But all of these bomb throwers get into if it bleeds, it leads, right?
Right.
And so they're trying to up their follower counts. I want to up my follower count too, but I'm an eternal optimist, right?
Yeah, you're not going to sensationalize.
And so whereas Lindelof leaving gives me a pause.
Right.
And it makes me go down these rabbit holes of, is Disney being too micromanaging, or is this going on? Or, I mean,
well, and they have all these cutbacks that they're doing right now.
Right.
We don't know how
I suffer from overthinking a lot. It's a big one of my barriers that I have to myself. And my money is people, let's use Occam Razor on this thing. And whatever he turned in just wasn't a good fit. And that's, I think, the only thing that we should assume about what's going on here.
Right.
It's easy to fall down and go to a rabbit hole of Disney's micromanaging or doing this or doing that, and that very well could be true. I think there's a lot of evidence for that.
Right.
Because another fact is, after the sequel trilogy, there's a lot of hesitation from Disney out there. All of these little jigsaw puzzles can piece together and to make for an ugly picture, right?
Well, so last week we got an interview from Damon Lindelof, and we didn't know he'd exited. But his interview was, they have really high expectations, and if it's not perfect, it shouldn't get made, and that it was just really hard to work in the framework of that Lucasfilm has set out for Star Wars. And really, you can see that surrounding the trepidation around, like you said, around the sequel trilogy, in that no matter how you feel about these movies, The Rise of Skywalker is a top 5 Star Wars movie for me. The Last Jedi is my least favorite Star Wars movie. When The Last Jedi came out, there was a big divide, regardless of if you are a huge fan of it or if you didn't like it at all. You have to recognize that it was divisive, because It was. That is a fact that it was divisive. And you can blame that on fans. You can blame that on the production. There's places to put the blame, and it's not even healthy to lay the blame anywhere. It happened, and now we need to move through it.
Yeah, can't put the toothpaste back in the tube.
Disney had the perspective of, there was this backlash. Solo came out less than 6 months later, and it didn't bomb. This is something that people really exaggerate, in that Solo did not bomb, but it did not perform like a Star Wars movie should.
Disney's expectations were a little bit too high.
I don't
for the product they made.
So that's not even what I think the perspective. What I would say is, I think Disney, their expectations were way too high, but they had no reason to not think that, because The Last Jedi still made gobs of money.
And Rogue One did extremely well.
Exactly. And so they had a track record of Star Wars movies, even the divisive one, making a lot of money. Then Solo came out, and it was not as divisive as The Last Jedi. People did not have as visceral reactions to Solo in one direction or the other. I've heard a few people say it, but you don't hear a lot of people say Solo is their favorite. There's a big tribe of people who The Last Jedi is their favorite. You don't hear many people say Solo is the worst Star Wars movie. There's a lot of people who say that Last Jedi is the worst Star Wars movie. And so Solo was in a tighter framework of like it and dislike it, but it made a lot less money. And that's what matters to Disney. We all know Disney's a company. We all know they care about the money. And that's what made them really gun-shy about production.
Yeah, because these movies cost $200 million or a lot more.
Right. You know. And so you had Lucasfilm get shaken up about The Last Jedi backlash, because They thought that they had a ringer. I mean, you watch the interviews before The Last Jedi. This was the greatest Star Wars movie. They believed that. I don't think it was. I mean, there are fans out there who will call this they were malicious or they wanted to murder Star Wars. They did not want to murder Star Wars. They firmly believed that this was going to be the new Empire Strikes Back. And it just wasn't. It fell flat for some fans, and so it was divisive. And so this whole train of events led to I'm not even going to say it led to Solo. There were a lot of factors that led to Solo not performing well. But these two back-to-back sequences, along with the Rise of Skywalker not being as well received as they wanted it to either, has led to them in all this trepidation about making a Star Wars movie. And from what we can indicate from the Damon Lindelof interview a week ago is Lucasfilm is shooting for the moon, and if you can't hit the moon, you can't launch. Right. If you can't have a perfect Star Wars movie, you can't make a Star Wars movie. And frankly, I would say it's not possible to make a perfect Star Wars movie. You have shareholders that you have to think about. You have a timeless classic set of movies that you have to honor. You have budgetary constraints from a parent company that is going to say, you're making it on this time frame, you're making it on this amount of money. You have creatives who want to drive in their own direction, for better or for worse. You have executives who want to drive in their own direction, for better or for worse. And then you have already a strained culture worldwide that they don't want to toe the line. They don't want to upset anybody. They want to make a piece of art that is going to be, that any piece of art that's good is divisive in some way. But they want to accomplish all of the things I listed, and most of these things contradict each other.
Right.
Something has to give, and I guarantee you it's not the shareholders, it's not the executives, and it's not the Star Wars as a timeless classic. Something else is going to give. And we don't know what that is, but you're going to have to realize this, or they're not going to make a new movie.
Well, and so thankfully we have hindsight, right? And so I remember recently reading articles about the original trilogy and some of the divisive stuff that was happening. You know, David Prowse leaked all the things. Right. And that you had to read that in sci-fi magazines or newspapers that he spilled the beans in. And so I'm sure for the time that I can't really think of anything off the top of my head that people are being controversial about.
Well, months ago we posted on our Instagram just a clip from a magazine that existed to criticize The Empire Strikes Back because it was not true to the original Star Wars. And isn't that a crazy concept to think about right now?
So that's what my point is like, and I have my own opinions. I don't think The Last Jedi will get a favorable look back myself. But, you know, there are plenty of people who had issues with the original trilogy. You know, the issues that people had with the sequels are famous. You know, we've talked about them a lot just today.
The prequels.
The prequels, exactly.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I misspoke. People had famous issues about the prequels, but George Lucas made it anyway and weathered those criticisms.
Yeah.
And it's only like we gushed over Ahmed Best.
Yes.
We gushed over, we said, I didn't like Jar Jar at the time, but I might have been falling victim to crowd, how they do things, right? And then, but looking back, Jar Jar is just fine.
Mm-hmm.
You know?
There was a prequel renaissance, and there are kids today who watch the sequel movies. My little cousin, who is 16, so he was a child, like an actual child, when The Force Awakens premiered and when that trilogy was being made, loves the sequels. Kylo Ren is his favorite Star Wars character. And he's 16. He's not a little kid. Like, he has formed opinions about TV and movies. And so there will be people who love the sequels for what they are. You just have to give it time. Right. And maybe that's what Disney needs. And it's not what I want, but maybe that's what we need is time.
I think if you're listing off things of how to make these movies better, that's the lowest hanging fruit is to let's just wait.
Yep.
I mean, because it worked last time. And then you make a movie and it's going to work again because hindsight always makes things look better.
Right. I mean, we're clamoring, and obviously we're super fans, and we're still getting a strong trickle of Star Wars content through TV, but we're still clamoring for a movie, and it's only been 5 years. And so, I mean, if you can I don't want them to wait, but if that's what it takes, I'm willing to wait because I would rather have a good Star Wars movie than a Star Wars movie every year or a Star Wars movie every 3 years.
And I think that's one of the lessons from Solo, too, is you can't make them that fast or
Yeah, you can't release them 6
crazy
months
stuff
apart.
happens. Yeah.
Exactly. So
We get Star Wars overload.
yeah, we've spent enough time on this article.
We could do a whole episode.
We could, yeah. We are huge Star Wars fans. We love every aspect of Star Wars. We're critical about it because we love it. We have our preferences. Our fans have our preferences. People who listen to this do not agree with all of our takes and do not agree with all of our preferences, and that's cool. That's fine. But we're all Star Wars fans, and we all want to see the franchise succeed. No one here is rooting for Star Wars to fail. No one at all is rooting for Star Wars to fail that we know or associate with. And so there's no...
And if you are, check your premise or stop being clickbaity.
Yeah, exactly.
We're
If
not
you
gonna
want
do
Star
that.
Wars to fail so you can get some views, then why call yourself a fan? There's no reason to do that. And so we want it to succeed in whatever form it's going to take, but we want it to be managed correctly and done right. And so I hope that this headline, again, has been sensationalized. The movie is not canceled. As far as we know, we're still getting an announcement of a movie at Celebration in just a month. And, you know, I'm confident that the 2025 date is still happening. I am not gonna shut the shade on that one.
Yep. Yeah, and there's a lot going on. You know, Lindelof has made a bunch of movies, made a bunch of good movies, and I think it's just not the simplest explanation is the right one or whatever.
Well, that's what he said in his interview. He said, "I'm just not suited to be a cook. I'm suited to be a patron. I'm suited to eat this stuff." Like, and he means Star Wars. Obviously, he makes good content. He's a great writer, but he just said it's not for me. Not that, you know.
And so, like, we got Favreau and Filoni and a lot of other people who are directing a lot of stuff. Maybe they bring one of these other people up to the big leagues and can fit in the mold.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So the next bit of news is also some sequel trilogy news, also kind of behind the scenes actor stuff. But it's pretty heartwarming because John Boyega, who played Finn, since The Rise of Skywalker, has had a really negative opinion of how his character was handled in the sequel trilogy. I don't think Finn was handled as good as he could have been. Heath and John Boyega says, you know, you made this character, a black character nonetheless, to be such a big deal in The Force Awakens trailers, in The Force Awakens movie, and then he got slowly sidelined for whatever reason you're going to attribute to Disney. We're not getting into the reasons on why he got sidelined, but he got sidelined. And so his role continued to diminish, and he just doesn't feel like he got the character that he was promised to play. But we're 5 years removed from The Rise of Skywalker, 4 years removed from The Rise of Skywalker. And so he has now said, you know, he's comfortable with Finn's portrayal. He watches The Mandalorian. He watches Obi-Wan Kenobi. He can enjoy Star Wars as a fan. And he credits Star Wars with how successful his acting career has been since then.
Yeah, I was really pumped to see what Finn was going to do. I thought the concept of a stormtrooper or a brainwashed person being a stormtrooper, breaking the code, you know, that's a sci-fi trope that I really like Universal Soldier and a couple of these other things. They're really fun. And in the context of having that in Star Wars, I was pumped just for that. But like, they hyped him up. One of the famous things was an interview he did with Samuel, and remarking how Samuel L. Jackson called him, "Hey Jedi" or whatever he said. You know, I don't recall exactly, but like, I want more Jedi.
Yeah,
I don't care. They can be aliens. Doesn't matter to me.
Right.
And so, like, that was the hype of what this sequel trilogy was going to be.
Yep.
To me, so pumped to see it. I'm sorry we didn't. I'm glad he's fine with it, but
no, I would have.
I'm not going to be his savior or anything. And so I hope I can understand his position and accepting to me his wisdom. And I want to look at these movies again with a more through his perspective and understand that better.
One of the really good parts about this headline is John Boyega has said before this, and he hasn't reversed this position, but he softened from just this article. Is he said he'd never be in Star Wars again. He is not doing it. And now this at least sounds like, not that he was open, but at least he has a better relationship with the character that he played. That I think there's a lot of people who said they'd never be in Star Wars. Ahmed Best said he was never going to be in Star Wars again. Christensen said he was never going to be in Star Wars again. Give it time, and hopefully, if John Boyega is already softening, hopefully in a little bit more time, he would be ready to reprise the role. And he gets his due.
Yeah, exactly right. And because the fans want that. I want that.
We all want to see it.
I love seeing... the way they wrapped his story up was not enough, right? At the end of the Exegol, right? But there was some breadcrumbs there.
Right.
How many times have we mentioned breadcrumbs in this about the Mandalorian? I'd eat breadcrumbs by the armload, right?
Yeah. No, you're right. I mean, I'm a sequel defender. Any sequel defender I know will still admit that his portrayal was not, he did not get the justice he deserved, and that we want him back for proper
I don't care what it is.
Exactly. So I think, it's hopeful that he'll return. But let's move on to the next. This is future Star Wars news. We're off the sequels. We're on to the next big thing. The Acolyte that we know we're getting in 2024 is going to be coming out. And we just had a leak that was broken by someone on set that there's going to be 8 episodes, and they're all going to be 60 minutes long. So we're going to get 8 straight hours of dark side, light side, High Republic Jedi action.
And we've talked about this a little bit before, that there's a Jedi that defeats people without being armed, or a Force user.
Yeah.
Jedi, we can't say that.
Yeah.
And they're pursuing, there's some pursuit going on here.
And these are all rumors, but they're credible rumors. And
Right.
there's a woman who is playing, there's an actress who I should know her name. She's playing 2 characters, twin sisters, one a dark side user, one a light side user.
Oh my goodness.
Some Parent Trap action in here. It's going to be, it sounds exciting. I'm super pumped for it.
Yes.
And so hearing that we're going to have this amount of time is really exciting. And then I'll say there's another, blink and you'll miss it part of this article that is really worth at least mentioning. And that's the person on set who broke this story was the intimacy coordinator, which we, as far as I know, have never had one of those on set for a Star Wars
So that would be
production
like
before.
an adult-oriented scene, I guess, assuming. Or...
So what I've read about, that's what everyone's first reaction was that it's, going to be an adult scene, and that obviously that kind of strikes a nerve with people because Star Wars is always
PG-13.
family-oriented. Exactly. And then I've heard from other people that it could just be really emotional scenes, or it can be, like a way scaled-back version of an adult scene, or there's a few ways that it could not be an adult scene that you would see on an HBO show. But we don't know what the intimacy coordinator part means.
Right.
My only hope is that, we can continue to show Star Wars to kids, that you can always, it's a family thing, that your 13-year-old can watch everything in Star Wars, basically.
Right. Yeah, they're committing suicide in the Bad Batch, so I don't know.
Yeah, the Bad Batch is severe. You're right. And so that was just a little interesting piece of information, and having that long chunk is going to be fun. So now, Colin, did you have something more to say on that article?
I was going to say, the dark side has me so intrigued. What was the Ahsoka Tano animation we saw? Was it
Tales of
Visions?
the Jedi.
Tales of the Jedi?
Yeah.
The Inquisitor who got smoked really fast in that. He was so cool.
Right.
Hopefully we get to see, and that guy, or what is it, in Visions, the first episode of the Samurai, where
Ronin.
The Ronin, where he draws his red saber and the lightsaber's red, that meme that everybody's playing.
Right.
There's such a, maybe they made the Acolyte just based off people's reaction to the stuff like that, know? And so I hope that's true. I hope all these, because they're like, name a dark side user who isn't cool. I mean, they all had their own,
Can't do it.
They had their own ways, you start, Dooku's, he's an old man and he's not as powerful. No. No, you're
and his
wrong.
character motivation is,
Yeah.
exactly. And
Yeah.
I have faith in the Acolyte. I think it's going to be good. It's exciting that we're getting a show like this.
Yeah, so pumped. Okay, what's next?
The next thing is the thing that I think we're going to be most excited about. This is why we said we're going to have such a long HoloNet news segment.
Yes.
Is because the Jedi Survivor trailer dropped this week, and it was a doozy. I mean, look, I've been super excited for Jedi Survivor. We've talked about it on like the last 10 episodes of this podcast, at least mentioned it. But the fact that we're getting this trailer, when I heard Jedi Survivor was coming out, super excited. But it was, it's going to be Jedi Fallen Order 2. It's going to be a lot of the same mechanics, a continuation of that story. They already fought Darth Vader. Where could they go from here? That kind of thing. Not that I wasn't excited, but not that I just had, this is going to be one of the greatest Star Wars projects of the year. Well, this trailer changed my mind on that completely. I think that this is going to be such an exciting Star Wars project. We've talked about all the new kinds of combat scenes, but there is so much going on in this trailer. This is the story trailer, so we've gotten a lot revealed in it. We've got new aliens, we've got new creatures, we've got new bad guys, we've got all kinds of bad guys. It seems like
All
in the trailer
kinds.
there's 5 bad guys alone. We got new Glup Shittos, Grease is back, Marin is back, Seer is back. I am so excited for this trailer.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. So I want to be very thorough on this and not. We have to give credence to this is a minute and 50 seconds long, and there's so much cram packed into it.
Yeah,
You know,
there's
in the
so
first
much.
trailer, we noted and other people did that the main characters weren't together, and so in Battle Scars, I'm about halfway through it. I think we find out why that is, and you can even see all the characters are back in this trailer. Grease and Marin and a lot more are doing a lot more in this trailer than
Right.
they didn't even exist in the last one.
Exactly.
Right.
Seer was the only one in the last one.
And
And they've all got new looks. They've all got brand new drip. Grease looks like he's been at a Grateful Dead concert for 10 days.
Right. And then the most striking thing that we hit first is Coruscant. And so
Again, we're back. It's the new Tatooine.
the
I'm
new
starting it now.
Tatooine. So if you recall, if you haven't played this game, this is why you need to check it out. It's an RPG, but you can travel from planet to planet to planet, just on a whim, on a will. You can stop what you're doing on a planet and go and there's barriers. Like in the first one, you go to Dathomir, and you can make the game a lot easier for you and get the double-bladed saber, right? So that's what I did. I didn't even know what I was doing that. I was just like, Dathomir's cool. I want to go mess around on Dathomir because I really like it, right? And so, but there's barriers, so you can't advance to the level in the story, right? So presumably that's going to be the same way. And in past games where you went to like Corellia and stuff, it was these massive, sprawling metroplexes. And, you know, obviously can't be planet-sized. Nothing, no technology we have can simulate that yet.
Right.
And even then, even if Coruscant were real, it'd probably get really boring. You know, oh, I'm going to the 275th diner. I'm going to the 438th bar.
Yep.
Yeah. How many? I'm going to 728,000 desk stick stand. You get stupid, right? So you don't need some big space, but it's going to be huge. It's Coruscant, right? So getting to travel to these different planets is going to be so fun.
Yeah, it is. And there's a lot of new planets. I mean, so you see a guy in a gold mask that, I mean, I called it a Revan mask in my notes just because I didn't have a better analogy. It's just this guy's got to be some kind of bounty hunter, but he's wielding a gold lightsaber.
And he's
no, he's
walking
not
with
wielding a
two
gold
combat
lightsaber. I'm
droids.
actually, yeah, exactly. So he has 2 B1s behind him, and he's intimidating this new frog Glup Shitto that I'm super obsessed with. But he's got the 2 droids behind him that are on Kobo. We know that Kobo is the starting planet, so this probably happens early in the story. Then later you see Cal dueling another guy with a lightsaber. He's got the yellow lightsaber with the crossblade. This is probably how you get the crossblade. And you just get all these scenes of them reuniting and on Coruscant. And there's been eagle-eyed fans who have picked up so much. One of the old Inquisitors is in the background from the last game. She's still alive, the large one that you fight on Kashyyyk. Then you've got, in the same scene altogether, a Z-95, a TIE fighter, and a Vulture droid, all in the same shot, fighting each other in an aerial battle. And so you've got a lot of really exciting stuff happening throughout the trailer. But the thing that hooked me the most, the thing that got me the most excited, is the guy thought out of the back to tank that we found is confirmed to be a High Republic Jedi. And he is giving Cal this long speech. How could you let the galaxy fall to a machine, to an empire, to a machine like this empire, I think is what he says. And so he is a High Republic Jedi. He comes from the Jedi's high point, from their heyday, from their golden age. And he has been thawed out of stasis for whatever reason, and he is so angry just through his dialogue in the trailer that the Jedi Order could have let this happen to the galaxy. And that is an amazing concept for an antagonist.
It really is.
Especially in a game like this.
Right. Yeah, no holds barred on this stuff.
I know. I mean,
right?
You get video games is Star Wars' 3rd largest market. Movies, then TV, then video games.
It's like we said, it's not even going to be mentioned at that Star Wars celebration.
Yeah, exactly. And so you have them introducing High Republic concepts to this big of an audience, and they're going to explain in depth what this means, why this character behaves this way, why he would be so upset that the Jedi let it fall this way. It's super exciting. I mean, I am over the moon that we're getting this much High Republic content in here.
Yeah, and we're going to stream it as much as we can. And, you know, we both work full-time jobs, so
right.
We're probably going to come up with a schedule on how to do this, but we're probably going to spend some time playing it so that we can absorb as much as we can. Even in this one trailer, the ships that you get to fly, like this little green Glupshido character that we're going to find out who it is. We obviously get to save him. They don't make characters this cute that just get whacked in half by a bounty hunter, right?
Yeah, and Cal's standing in the background of this shot, I believe. At least at what I had seen online, I believe people were talking about that Cal might be in the background of this shot. He's, I think, behind the antagonist there, to the right.
Yeah, he is.
Yeah, and so he's standing there for some reason. The same blink it, you'll miss it, of missing the Inquisitor a little bit later, that she's in the background. And so lots of exciting stuff in this trailer. Only question I have lingering from the trailer is, if you remember back in the teaser trailer, way back, I mean maybe a year ago at this point, there's a Powan senator. Where is he? I'm really curious. We're on Coruscant. That's where we're going to encounter him. But he seemed like the big bad here in that trailer. And now it's like, where is he? What's going on?
And then, like, you get to fly ships, atmospheric ships, it looks like, or it's some sort of travel mechanism. I really think from the last time we analyzed this, you get to play as different characters. It was like a rogue or smuggler or whatever type character.
Yeah, well, you have the new companion combat system. And so you'll see towards the end of the trailer that Bode and Marin and I assume Seer and Grease, and maybe BD1 and maybe some other characters, that there's a AI, CPU, whatever you want to call it, character that aids you in combat, that is also fighting alongside with you. You can use your combos to combo with them.
Excellent.
It's going to be, I mean, it's a really exciting concept.
So this is, I watched a breakdown video and I've already forgot all the names. This purple-skinned alien in very large in a suit. Do you remember what he was called?
Yeah, so he's the same species as Dirge, which is a famous species from the he was
the Clone
from
Wars cartoon.
Well, yeah, he was from the original Tartarovsky Clone Wars cartoon, and then was in Legends, and he's recently been reintroduced into canon in the War of the Bounty Hunters, and his species is called a Jedi.
That's right. And they were indestructible almost.
Yes, exactly. Their whole body is nerves. They can regenerate from a single nerve. And they have to wear these mech suits like that character is wearing, because the only thing they have is a face and a head and then a bunch of nerves that if you take them out of the mech suit, they all fall apart and don't connect to each other. So it's a really interesting, I mean, it's a really, really crazy alien, but it's something I didn't think we were going to get in the Star Wars game. They're breaking a lot of ground and pushing a lot of boundaries in this Star Wars game, I think.
Oh, well, it's easy to, in the book, Battle Scars, they're dealing with the Empire a lot, and of course the Empire was doing a lot of stuff in the last game, and even in these trailers you fight a lot of stormtroopers. It's really easy to fall into a trap that all you're interacting is with Empire stuff or stuff.
Especially in this
time these guys
period.
are obviously bounty hunters.
Yeah.
In the book, it mentions how big of a price he has on his head.
Mm-hmm.
So that's obviously going to translate into this, that they go some places and bounty hunters show up to come collect his head, right?
Yeah. No, you're absolutely right. So
that's going to be so fun. Another scenes in this is solving all the puzzles. I remember the giant spheres in the last game.
Yeah.
Unlocking the Templar or whatever. And that's a lot of similar scenes in this one. And so those are always so fun in these games, and the boss fights.
Yeah, you can bet there's going to be a lot of puzzles.
Inquisitors, bounty hunters, the big bad.
Oh, man.
They always save that for a big reveal, like Darth Vader, right?
Exactly.
I felt kind of bad because, I go through spurts of playing video games and doing this and doing that, and I hadn't played that, and I just watched it. I didn't get the significance of how cool Darth Vader was.
Right.
Because you can just ending of Fallen Order. It's like, oh, this would be cool. I'm like, now going back, I wish I hadn't done that. I'm not doing that this time.
No, you'll have to play that one through. It'll be really cool. I'm very excited for it, and I know so many people that are excited for it. It's going to produce a lot of Star Wars content. People are going to be jazzed when this game comes out, and we're less than a month away from release now. I just pre-ordered mine 2 days ago, actually. So I've got my copy pre-ordered. It'll be loaded onto my Xbox the day that it comes out, and I can't wait for that. So Colin, I think that wraps up our HoloNet news segment. This was super exciting. I'm really happy we could end on a high note like Jedi Survivor for the news segment. It was awesome. I want to talk about our Star Wars moment of the weeks. Jedi Survivor has gotten me even more excited to talk about my Star Wars moment of the week because it relates to Jedi Survivor. So let's get right into it right now. Star Wars moment of the week.
We would be honored if you would join us.
Colin, I think I'm going to go first on my moment because I'm so excited about it. In that this is the first time I've ever done this. It happened 3 days ago. I streamed for the first time on our Twitch channel. I played Star Wars Battlefront 2, and it was just my voice. I didn't have a camera set up, but I ran a stream. I was basically trying to test it out to make sure I'll be able to stream Jedi Survivor without any hiccups, but I had an awesome time. It was a lot of fun. We had a few people join. We had 3 viewers at our max at our time. Our Twitch is one of our smaller platforms. We're still trying to grow it right now. And so it was really exciting to get to engage with people. I even had someone give a good comment. I was playing on St. Patrick's Day. And so I was discussing the significance of Star Wars holidays. And they said that they really enjoyed listening to me talk about that. And we had someone come and, DM us and talk for, 5 or 6 minutes about how much they liked hearing about the Star Wars holidays. So I loved streaming Star Wars Battlefront. 2, if I play it anymore, and I likely will, I just hop on it every now and then. I'm just going to press the stream button to continue playing it, and it was just a lot of fun. So I'm looking forward to Jedi Survivor even more after the trailer, and now even more because I know how to stream, I know what I'm doing, and I'm super excited to do it.
Man, that's awesome.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun.
Did that. You didn't tell me you did that.
Yeah, well, so I complained about you on the stream because I invited you to St. Patrick's Day party, and I told people to pester you to come, and you didn't even come.
I was on vacation. I would have loved to have been here. I'm sorry I didn't make it.
No, it's okay.
You sent me the pictures of the food you made. It looked phenomenal.
Thank you. I appreciate it. I accidentally, also funny Easter egg about the St. Patrick's Day party is I accidentally posted the bread that I made on our Star Wars station Instagram story and didn't realize until like 21 hours later. So all of our followers were like, why is this bread here? What is this?
How many likes did it get?
I got 3 or 4. It got quite a few. Some people were like, oh, cool, bread. And so
I like bread.
Yeah, exactly. So that was funny. But yeah, so that's only the kind of behind the scene Easter eggs you can get by listening to this podcast.
That's awesome.
Yeah. So what's your Star Wars moment of the week?
My moment of the week is pretty simple. We're gearing up for our Star Wars RPG, and there's a certain program that you can download to build your character. What is it, Guides or something? Ogdude. And so we're helping a fellow player. Josh is his name. I helped him develop his character, and it made me anticipate what we're going to do with this RPG thing so much more because the system, one thing that is kind of off-putting to me is these systems get kind of complex. But after you help me make my character, and then I'm helping him figure out because it's real easy in these RPG games this is the person that I want to be, right? Or I want to be a human. That's kind of simple because we're humans, right? You have this whole massive. Like, how many races are available in this game? Oh,
gosh, I can't even.
40?
More than that, I think.
Yeah.
It's a ton.
And they all and it's not just like, oh, I'm going to be a different version of a human. Nope.
Right.
They all have their different stats and abilities and pluses and minuses and stuff. So we spend a great deal of time just picking out what race his character was going to be. And it's not coming from a perspective of, like, I want the best stats for what I'm doing. It's more of like, you go to a buffet, in real life, it's like, I want 1 or 2 things off of there.
Right.
Well, think about you going to a buffet and there's 100 things that you want off of there and you can't pick one.
Right.
You got to pick one, and you can only pick one. It's not like you can fill your plate with 10 different things, right? So that's the struggle he was having, and we spent a lot of time going through all these races and figuring out what. And he really surprised me with what he wanted to pick because, even as a droid character, there's still a lot of diversity in that.
Right.
And then, you can get lost. I said that 10 times already. He ended up picking it. I don't know, like a Rhodian, something that we see mostly on screen. That's overt. Like, I would have thought he would pick. You can play as a Hutt, right?
Yeah, you can.
And that would be strange, but it'd be cool,
right?
At the same time, and so. Out of the races that he picked, I would have figured he would have picked Hutt before this, but he picked Mikian.
Right. Which are so cool.
It's so cool. So, like, couldn't have guessed that he was going to pick that character to play.
Right. For those listening, if you don't know what a Mickeyan is, check out Tiplar or Tipley from the season 7 of the Clone Wars.
Yeah,
They
twin
show up
Jedi
there.
Masters. Right?
Yes, yeah. Cool. It's a really cool species.
Right.
I was happy to hear that he picked that. And we have an all alien / droid party. We don't have a
Right.
single
No
human
humans.
in the party.
Uh,
Yeah.
And like we're only humanoid resembling the ones who aren't droids, right?
Yes.
I mean, like there's a lot of humanoid races. Like, who's the senator we talked about?
Oh, Chuchi, a Pantoran.
Chuchi,
They're just
yeah.
blue people.
She's just blue,
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
She's human, but she's got blue skin. And there's probably 50 races that we can name off that are just chiss,
Exactly. Yeah,
right?
that are just
stuff
the
like
same.
that. And like what was your Duros? He's
Yep.
got these giant eyes.
Yeah,
right?
I mean, I look like a gray from well, I say actual alien, but I look like an alien that people think are real aliens.
Right. And so that whole process, and we didn't get to the tip of the iceberg. I'm not smart enough or well read on these RPGs that I need to be. I have a lot more to do that we're going to get to.
Right.
And but just in that act alone of helping him pick out what race his character is going to be was so much fun.
Yeah.
And how it affects the group but like I said, it's more about what skin he's going to wear, I guess, is a decent way to put it. So yeah.
Yeah, no, that's
my
super
moment of the
exciting.
week.
That's a great moment of the week because it's so exciting. I'm really pumped to play this RPG. We've got a lot coming. We just posted on our Patreon 2 days ago. My backstory for my character. We're going to be posting Colin's probably next week or the week after. But just so everyone listening knows, it's free. We didn't make it a patron tier. You can go access that without being any tier. You can go read that backstory. We just put it on our Patreon because that's a good place to host these kinds of things because it's a dedicated feed to just our stuff. And so you should really go check it out. You can find the link in our bio and go read about our characters.
And Carter's character background is all it has is ties into Star Wars. He totally wrote it himself. It's a completely original story with a Star Wars theme, I guess is a good way to put it. It's 8 pages long with
Yeah.
a couple more pages of tie-in to my character.
Right.
Man, it's a good story.
Well, I appreciate it.
I'm particularly proud of my story. I think it's an
yours is
original
exciting.
idea.
It is.
And because droids can easily in Star Wars be just one-dimensional. They're an assassin droid who shows up. And my character could be one-dimensional, but he's sentient, so he's not that way. And I'm not anybody's follower. But come check these stories out. I'm proud of mine. Carter's is phenomenal. And I want to hear what you think about my story that I wrote.
Right. Yeah, we absolutely do. We're going to be rolling out the RPG probably early May, maybe late April, but guarantee on early May.
There's a lot that goes into the production.
It is. It is going to be a production. I mean, we are going to add sounds.
We're not made of money. It's not going to be some Critical Role type thing.
Exactly, but we're going to try our best.
We're not pulling any punches either.
Exactly.
Everybody's going to have microphones. We're making sure the table's right. We're having a dice rolling cam.
Yep. We're ready
to
for
the
this.
extent of our abilities. We're pushing the envelope.
Yes, and so we're really excited to release this. As we've said multiple times, we're going to release the first episode on our podcast stream, just the audio of it for the very first one, so you can check it out, see if you're interested in it. We're going to release the video on our Patreon, and we're going to release it monthly with a new episode every month. And so we're going to be really excited to do that. We can't wait to share it with you guys. I mean, we've had a ton of fun building it. It gets closer and closer, and every day it gets closer. We get more excited to do it. And so you can check that out at our Patreon. It's patreon.com/Star Wars Station. You can get access to this when it rolls out for the complete video, and after episode 1, all subsequent episodes will only be released on our Patreon. You can access it at the $2 tier. So for $2 a month, you can, which is cheaper than your Disney Plus subscription, cheaper than a bunch of stuff, is you can check out our monthly Star Wars RPG. And it's going to be an RPG length. It's going to be multiple hours long. So it's not, our podcast is 2 hours max, two and a quarter on a good one, or on a long one. But it's 2 and a quarter max. We are definitely going to exceed that. I don't even think an episode will be as short as 2 hours. So
it's easy to get lost. 4 hours is probably a
the
good,
average.
a good metric.
Yeah,
right?
exactly. And so it's going to be really exciting. We really hope you guys engage with that and engage with us in other places. You can find us on our Patreon. You can also find us on Instagram. We're at StarWars.station. You can find us on Twitter at SW_station. You can find us on Twitch.
Twitch.tv/Station Media.
We're going to be streaming Survivor. I'm streaming Battlefront 2 on there. Colin is someday going to be streaming his Legion painting on there.
Yeah, I'm slating it in. It's in the queue.
It's in the queue. We're ready to do that. We have a YouTube. We post all of these episodes on our YouTube. We've got some good ideas for YouTube. We've got some new little shorts going up on YouTube that we've already begun cranking out. We've got a ton for you guys. We have a ton to offer here. We continue to grow. We have our community that continues to grow. We've got new members to the Discord. We've got new patrons. It is just so much fun engaging with you guys. We super appreciate being a part of the Star Wars community and engaging in just a normal, chill fan base that we have a lot of fun with. You know, it's not full of haters. It's not full of sycophants. It's full of just genuine Star Wars fans who dialogue about what we like, what we dislike, and have a great time.
Every time I look it up, we're getting a new notification of followers or Facebook persons or patrons are here and there. So, attach yourself to the starship that's going to a galaxy far, far away. We're going to get there before Elon Musk does and his to Mars.
Right,
so,
exactly.
Yeah, let's go.
And check us out on our Facebook, brand new Facebook group over there, Star Wars Station Cantina. It's really active, actually. We get a lot of posts in there. We get a lot of new members in there. I mean, we're having an awesome time. And so check us out everywhere. But the number one thing you can do to support us is leave us a 5-star review. Spotify, Apple, thumbs up this video on YouTube. I mean, any way you can help us to amplify our voice and to gain a bigger audience and to engage with the Star Wars community and to, game the algorithm to get our stuff out there is the biggest way that you can help us. And so 5-star reviews are huge, or 5-star ratings are huge. 5-star review on Apple is even better. Just throw your thoughts out there. If you've made it this far into the podcast, you obviously like what you've heard. And so continue to support us. Send us a note of support. We appreciate hearing from you guys. We get DMs all day, every day, and we don't get tired of it because we love talking to Star Wars fans. If you disagreed with something we said in the podcast, let us know. If you agree, let us know. We want to talk about it. You got some idea or theory that we didn't talk about? Come tell us about it. We've got all kinds of stuff on our Patreon, Q&As. You can suggest show topics. We got a book club on there. I mean, there is something for every kind and every level of Star Wars fan. So we really want to see you guys participate.
And I want to toot my own horn, our horn a little bit. I think we're pretty comprehensive. I'm willing to bet in our podcast, there's stuff that you don't hear anywhere else.
Yeah, I absolutely hope that you're not hearing that we're giving you guys new ideas. Obviously, we're not treading new ground all day, every day, but I certainly like to think that every podcast contains a little nugget that you haven't heard yet.
Right. We're huge Star Wars fans. We love talking about it, and we want to hear from you.
Yep, absolutely. So thank you guys all so much for engaging with us. We really appreciate it. We thank you guys for just continuing to listen to Star Wars Station. We're really grateful.
Yep. I don't have anything else. Thank you so much.
Thank you guys so much. And until next week, keep it